name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Christ is among us.
He is among us, shall we?
Good morning.
Good morning, Father.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you. I don't have exactly a homily prepared this morning, just a kind of a reflection, a message. I don't know what you want to call it. But I'll start with this. On Thursday, we had our parish council meeting for the month of October. It was, I think, a very good meeting. And one of the changes that we made this year in our parish council was that we only do our financial reports every quarter, every 3 months. So this was one of those nights where we did our financial report, and it is a change for us, and it's always a little bit slight more anxiety because you don't know, because you haven't seen it in 3 months. How is it looking? And of course, over the last few months in this nation, we've seen record inflation, as high as it's been since I was a boy, and a recession beginning in this country, and all kinds of other concerns and worries. And so you never know what's going to happen. We weathered the pandemic, thank God, by your generosity and by your graciousness pretty well, and it seems like we're actually still weathering this as well. And I give thanks to God, but I give thanks to you, because you are doing the right things. You have heard the gospel. You have received in your heart the spirit of thanksgiving. And you are showing forth your generosity, your abundant generosity, so that you, having sufficiency in all things, can be abundant towards every good work, as St. Paul says. And that's the beautiful thing. And stewardship is an important thing in the church. And talking about stewardship is an important thing. Orthodox churches, you don't generally hear the priest talk or preach about stewardship as often as you might in other churches. We have other fish to fry, I think, is a big part of that. But it is an important part of the ministry that we do, and we should talk about it. So I am going to talk about it a little bit, and I hope you don't consider it a taboo subject. So that's why I lead with the beginning by saying, we're doing pretty good. Thank God. I'm not here to bat against straight. And I hope I never have to. That's not what I certainly asked to be ordained to do. I wanted to preach the Word of God and to celebrate the liturgy and to be with you and minister to you in your lives, not worry about the bills and things like that. But stewardship for us is, let's first remember what it is what we are here to do. We are here to offer the Lord our worship. We are here to share in fellowship with Him and with one another. We're here to serve not only the Lord in liturgizing, but also serving the world through our kindness, through our generosity, through our good works, through our love for our neighbor and for the stranger. And we also support the ministry of the church in this way. And the main way that we support the ministry of the church is through time, talents, and yes, treasures. The time that we give the first hours of our each week to the Lord by coming to these Sunday services, which, remember, begin Saturday night at sunset with the Vesper service. That's the first Sunday service. And the morning service, the Matins, and then the Divine Liturgy. The more you give that time to the Lord, the more that spiritual blessing grows in you. And then throughout the week, we give Him our prayer and our time with Him, and maybe some additional services beyond Sundays, believe it or not. There are many services that we do. This week I don't think we have any, except Wednesday night we'll have a reader service, and then again Saturday the Vespers.
We still have morning prayer.
And morning prayers, yes. If you want to join fellow parishioners in praying together, most days of the week we have morning prayers through Zoom, so you can do that. Sometimes I'll join on my phone while I'm in the bus stop with my daughter. So you can do that. So your time is really important. The time that you give, the attention that you give, your presence here. I thank God for all of you that you take your time to be here. And I hope that what you get out of your time here is far more than anything you could have done doing anything else. And especially for those who are joining us from afar still, or because they're out of town or what have you, I thank you that you're still taking the time to be with us online. That makes a huge difference. One of the things I've been doing is I've been taking a course on religious fundraising through Holy Cross Seminary right now. And one of the things we do is we talk with other clergy, we talk with other priests, it's kind of funny because I feel really bad that I have it so good, because I have such a faithful community. And I hear the other priests in our peer group talking about the kind of situations they have. And somebody said something to me that was extraordinarily sad to me. He said, wow, it sounds, Father, like you have everything running on all cylinders. In our community, we don't see the young people from between ages 20 to 40. And that's normal for those communities in many parishes. We are extremely blessed in St. Mary's that we have a very active and engaged young adult community. We have a lot of young families. There are young families all over the country. It's not like they're not in those communities, but for some reason, those parishes haven't been able to make that opening and that bridge happen for those young people. So I want to especially thank the young adults who are taking their time to be here when there are so many temptations out in the world drawing them away to be somewhere else. You could be doing all these other things that the world is telling you are important, but you've made a good choice, like Mary, to sit at the feet of Christ and hear his good word. That's hugely important. And I hope that you get a lot out of it. I know that you support each other and that your presence here for each other is extremely beneficial for each other. But I want to let you know, for those of us who had aged out of that category, like myself, I came here when I was still in that category. I was only about 34, 35. Now I'm a little bit beyond that. You make us feel younger. You make the rest of us feel younger. And for the younger people than you, the teens and even the kids, you are an extremely important witness. Because if you go into a parish and you're a young person or a teenager and you don't see anybody between the ages of 20 and 40, what's the expectation? Well, I don't have to come back here after high school. And a lot of those kids don't come back at all because they get used to not being there. But the fact that you're here and you're showing how it's done the right way, you are providing an extraordinary witness of your time to those young people as well as to your elders and to each other. So thank you very much for that. That's one of the things we also focused on in our meeting on Thursday. In terms of talents, I'm always blown away by the extraordinary richness of talents that we have in this parish. Sometimes I do, I'll be honest, sometimes I remember my parish in Western Pennsylvania where I had lots of people who could come together to do like a bake sale or to fix things, and they all had those kind of skill sets, right? More of a blue-collar parish, and here we have a lot of people who can tell you the historical reasons for why we do what we do, but give them a wrench and you know who you are. And I'm one of them. I'm really good with a hammer, but that's about the only tool I'm good with. So, it's easy. But you all have such extraordinary talents, and I'm so honored and pleased to get to know all of those because I see how many of you bring them to the service of the Lord. You bring, if you're a professional, if you're an educator, if you're an attorney, if you work in leadership in our nation, okay, you have extraordinary skills that you bring, organizational skills, that are allowing us to do wonderful ministry and wonderful work. And yes, some of you have the skills of a contractor, or you have other skills that you bring and you serve the parish that way. It's so important. There are so many moving parts to a community, even as humble as St. Mary's. We're not a gigantic parish, we're not tiny, but we're not gigantic either. But there are an extraordinary amount of moving parts here in this community. And the fact that all of you bring your talents to the table to make it possible for us to do this, because I certainly couldn't do half of the stuff that needs to get done. I mean, it's not even close. It'd be done, it'd be over, fall apart. And what the other benefit is, you allow me the space to actually cultivate my gifts and talents to do the things that I'm really actually best called to do, things that actually might have a little bit of skill in. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. And lastly, your treasures. You bring your treasures. You understand that whether it's a pandemic and the world looks like it's about to end, or it's a recession and you feel like it's going to end, right? I mean, how many of you have looked at your retirement funds or your education funds, 529s, and cried, right? If you haven't, just don't. No, you don't need that sorrow in your life. And if you don't even have those, well, you probably need to be crying for some other reason. So maybe think about that. Might be a good time to start those because everything's in the tank. It'll come back higher in the days to come. But you know how it is. You know how you're just getting to work is cost now 50% more than it did, 100% more than it did a year or two ago. You feel it. But you drive to church. Some of you drive over an hour to be here on a Sunday. I thank you for that because I know not only is it costing you extraordinary time, it's costing you money just to be present physically, to fuel your vehicle. And you know how the groceries are. You bring food to share with others. You know how much that's gone up. Everything seems to have gone up at least 25%, right? And because of inflation, your dollar is weaker by at least 25%. So that means, wow. But you're still giving at the same rate that you gave before all of this. And some of you are even giving more, which is amazing to me. Yes, the biblical target is 10%. That's true. Tithing is a noble goal, and I do encourage you to attempt to target that because the blessings that come from it are amazing. But as St. Paul says, let each person purpose in their own heart what they want to give so that they can do so cheerfully because God loves the cheerful giver. That's our standard. Look in your heart and say, Lord, thank you for everything that you have given me. How can I give something back? How can I give back to the world? And how can I give back to your holy house? And help this Thanksgiving grow and abound to more people so that they can know. That's how we do it. That's the way we approach it. We don't have any dues. We don't set any number, target. We let you decide. If you say, Father, I want to be a member here at the church, we don't ask you how much you want to give. And if you ask me how much you should give, I'll say, I don't know. What do you think? What do you want? What is your heart tell me? And surprise, it's been working very, very well for us here at St. Mary's for many years. Now, the reason I decided to take a course on religious fundraising in a parish where I don't really need to, because everything seems to be going really well, I'll let you know. It's because if you have noticed or paid attention to our communications or the little posters down in the hall, we are hoping to take it to the next level. We are hoping that eventually we'll be able to expand our property, renovate the property, do some very serious renovations. That too is going to be more expensive than we originally thought just because of the inflation and everything. And that's what fills me with anxiety more than anything, because I know that at some point the parish council is going to say, Father David, go. Go and ask the people to give extra to make that possible, to make it happen. If you allow me, right? You all have a say if you even want me to come ask you, because you'll be able to say, we don't even want to try. And that might happen. I don't want it to happen. But the reason we pursued the project, in spite of all these crazy, terrible things that have been happening in the world and in this country for the last few years, is because we're planting for rain. You know the story, right? The world, the farmer goes out and it's not raining, it's dry, whatever, but he still has to till the soil. He still has to sow the seed, and he still has to be prepared, because someday the rain will come. And when the rain does come, the crop will finally sprout, and there will be a harvest of abundance. And if we live in a place of fear and just look at the now, then nothing will ever change or move, right? And that's, for the most part, what we've done as a community for many years, we're like, well, we don't know about that. It's really unknown. It's really scary. We don't know what people are going to think a year from now, 2 years from now. So let's be very hesitant. And we did that for a long time until we realized that's not really going to solve the problems that we have every year. But also, more importantly, is that what God wants us to be? This community does so much and has such a great vision of what it needs to be a church. There's so many people out there who love to have a church like St. Mary's. Is this the end of that story, or are we supposed to do more with the blessings that we've been given? And that's the great challenge. So we're planting for rain. And I hope with the county's permissions and blessings, the plan that we have put together will be approved by them, and then we can come to you and say, okay, we're going to price it out, we're going to look at what it costs, and this is what, to do it, we would need to be able to raise, and these are the kind of treasures and times and talents that we're going to need to do it. And we're going to be asking you to lead that giving. Come up with as many creative ways we can to find outside funding, but the reality is that these projects are made by the communities that do them. That's where it begins, and that's where it ends. So brothers and sisters, I thank you. I thank God for your generosity, and I look forward to all the things that are possible for this community, because that you are letting that seed take root in your heart, and that you're letting your soil get tilled well, so that when the rain comes and you have abundance, you can share it and do something really to the glory of God, that we might all be one as the Father and Son. So may God bless you and keep you and strengthen you and fill you with every good thing, so that having what you need, you can sow in abundance to the world. Christ is among us.
Is it our